Well, I always say that sports really are the universal language. So that's really why I love being able to share my story about growing up in a football family and also being able to write Football Freddie and Fumble the Dog game day and all my different books and really get kids excited about reading and playing and being a fan because there's nothing more fun than being a fan.
It's so amazing that you mentioned that because I think that's where it starts for most people. I remember, shout out to my parents, we did the summer reading programs at the library. They made me be honest about it, so I had to read whatever I chose, but they let me pick really whatever I wanted, and I found myself gravitating towards sports biographies and sports autobiographies of my favorite players and coaches and teams.
Yeah. Well, it's really, first of all, my mom was a teacher before becoming an entrepreneur and getting a law degree and running the Philadelphia Eagles. My mom was a teacher.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Marnie Schneider. How are you doing today, Marnie?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks, Jeremy. How are you doing?
I can't complain. It's a beautiful day in Wisconsin, and I'm just happy to get some time to talk with you today.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate that. And thanks for, reaching out to me and making this all happen. I love getting to speak a little sports and make some new friends. And, that's really what my favorite thing is about being a football fan or being a sports fan is really that.
I couldn't agree more. And it's funny because I always like to kick off the show with the importance of networking and talk about how we're connected. And it's funny because it's literally through social media. And I think our shared love for sports.
Uh-huh. Well, I always say that sports really are the universal language. So that's really why I love being able to share my story about growing up in a football family and also being able to write Football Freddie and Fumble the Dog game day and all my different books and really get kids excited about reading and playing and being a fan because there's nothing more fun than being a fan.
It's so amazing that you mentioned that because I think that's where it starts for most people. I remember, shout out to my parents, we did the summer reading programs at the library.
Mhm.
They made me be honest about it, so I had to read whatever I chose, but they let me pick really whatever I wanted, and I found myself gravitating towards sports biographies and sports autobiographies of my favorite players and coaches and teams.
Yeah. Well, it's really, first of all, my mom was a teacher before becoming an entrepreneur and getting a law degree and running the Philadelphia Eagles. My mom was a teacher. So I think that reading was always a huge part of my life and writing as well. And so I'm so grateful for the fact that, like, on these long plane rides, my mom would hand me a notebook, and we didn't have iPads or iPhones back then. So she would hand me a notebook and a pen and say, like, just write or read. And that was really it. And so I got to share my stories about like the weekend or the games, or if it was really a huge loss, grieve through my journaling. And, it really made me appreciate certainly all the experiences I had, but then also realize that I thought that other kids, as I got older, my mom said, let's take these notes out and do something with it, that other kids will appreciate, sharing this experience. And so I'm very thankful, and bravo to your parents for encouraging you to read. It really is the best thing we could do for children.
It really is. And they were just so great
Mhm.
about, or I should say, they are so great about letting me pick what I wanted to do as long as it made sense. But I remember, it's funny because all around me is my library. I have my sports stuff in the background, but I'm
I
looking at the
see.
books.
That's
And
really
I
impressive.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
big bobblehead collector, as you might be able to see for those that are watching.
Yeah, that was really a commitment. That's really also great. It's like when you're a fan, you really get excited and committed to doing something and to being involved and creating a treasure that you have and sharing it and telling the stories and remembering the stories of like where you were when you got that or how that came to be in your life. And so they are just such special memories and moments. And I love seeing that in your background because I know you put a lot of effort into it. So it
I
shows.
appreciate it.
Yeah, that's like you're like an MVP of sports collecting. Look at that.
Something like
You
that.
know,
I try.
yeah.
Try.
Uh-huh. You can tell. Yeah.
What's your origin story? Think comic book issue number one. Who are you?
Well, let's see. That's I'm trying to figure that out, but I think that like the as probably many of us are, I would say that my origin story is that I grew up in Philadelphia and I am an only child to an incredibly smart and dedicated mom who was an entrepreneur and designed tennis dresses, was a teacher, and then decided that there was more, looking out like in her future. So she went to law school and then ended up taking a job at the Philadelphia Eagles, the team that my grandfather owned. And so she is still to this day the first and only female vice president, legal counsel, and general manager of a professional football team. So I'm very proud of my mom's accomplishments. And I think that who I am is, hopefully a terrific mother, a devoted daughter, a great friend, an advocate to those that are, looking for some support in different philanthropic endeavors, and a dog lover, animal lover. I don't know, hopefully just a decent person, who loves to write books and share my stories of different cities, and being a football fan and a sports fan.
I love that. So growing up, it was probably a little different for you growing up in that kind of atmosphere of being a sports fan, but also having it probably be a bit of the home life as well.
I think my mom did an incredible job of making me understand the uniqueness of the situation without it being so gratuitous. And, I would get on the airplane with, the team for the weekend, and I would sit in the back of the plane and, did my homework and had a Sony Walkman. And if we ran out of batteries, then that was that, had my snacks. Like, I think my mom really tried to, without watering down the experience, because I think she wanted me to enjoy it all. I think she wanted me to also know that like this was a job and this was her job, and the players had a job and the front office had a job and the coaches had a job. And so like to be disruptive while other people were actually working would be really selfish. And so I think that I just got to have a really great seat on the plane, and certainly during the games. But again, the experience was amazing for many things, but also like there was a lot of waiting and sitting around and waiting in the tunnel for the press people to be ready to leave, and the everybody. So I think that like I've in my life, I read that book Outliers. I don't know if you've ever read the book
Yes.
Outliers, but like I literally think I have waited 10,000 hours in places. Now, as a mom, I've waited in, school parking lots and gymnasiums and football fields and sporting events and whatever else. Definitely have done that. But I think as a young girl, I just waited because you just have to wait. You wait to leave and you wait to do whatever. And so I think that there's something kind of great that I learned patience from just waiting, because it's not like you can't just leave, like you're waiting for everybody else to go. And I think that like that's one of the great gifts that I did learn was patience, like that. And so I am thankful that I've never been a drinker or a druggie or whatever. And I think a lot of it has to do with just being patient and not needing things immediately, because I knew that I probably couldn't get them.
I love that outlook. I think your mom did a great job keeping you grounded. I always tell people when you have those incredible experiences, I had worked at the Pro Football Hall of Fame and College Football Hall of Fames. And while it was amazing and I appreciated my time there, it was work. Of course, we got to enjoy it and there was amazing moments that I'll never forget. But at the same time, it definitely was work.
It's work. I mean, and that's the thing. And I think that's what my mom tried to really highlight for me, was that like she was working. So like we might be in a great city, going to San Diego when you live in Philadelphia in December is like amazing. It's like so super cool. And like I had never seen like a bird of paradise flower and things like that. but it was still work, ultimately it was work for them. So while there was some fun times that I got to go to the zoo or go do things that were a little bit unusual for a young girl, during a weekend that was not a holiday, I think she still wanted me to realize that, like, we were there for work, and my job was to not be a brat, and my job was to be on time, like take care of myself, like not be disruptive. And if I could do those things, which are normal things that is not asking too much, then I got to get rewarded by going to the game and getting to do some fun things like that. And so I think that I'm very thankful that my mom showed me how hard she worked, and it was not so fancy so much. It was really more a work trip, and I could just tag along on a work trip the same way that, like, if she was a plumber, I would just go to the work trip too. Same idea. A little bit cooler maybe, but maybe depending, on what was going on, maybe not. If it was a really bad game, it was definitely not such a fun trip. Let's put it that way.
I believe
Yeah.
it. I believe it. And for those who are not watching, can you tell me who your special guest is that has joined us?
Yes. So my book series, Football Freddie and Fumble the dog. This is not Fumble. I don't know. Fumble, come here, Irv. His real name's Irving. He is being a little camera shy. So I have my other dog. His name is Cash, as in Johnny Cash, who decided to take, he's going to take Fumble the dog's spot. Usually Fumble is on my lap during interviews because we talk about, my books and so forth. But well, he's gone now. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see if I can get the other one, who's really the star of the show, to show up during our interview. But yeah, I love dogs. I love animals. So I am very thankful. I've got some nice pets that, seem to enjoy my company too.
That's great. That's great. So, you grew up in that atmosphere. What kind of happened next on your journey?
So my journey, after I was in high school, and there were a bunch of different things that were going on. And then suddenly, my grandfather in my senior year ended up selling the Philadelphia Eagles. And so imagine, like, you're kind of just like sitting around going like, I don't know I guess I'll just go do. And then things change. And so I'm so glad that I wasn't unprepared for the change, not emotionally unprepared, although it was frustrating at times with certain things, but I was not emotionally unprepared, and I was not academically unprepared. And again, those are all things that my mom had really definitely done such a solid job as a parent. And it's so hard to be a parent. I have 3 kids, and it's very difficult. So I don't know how she did that I don't think I would have been able to do nearly the job that she did, given the parameters and the circumstances and everything else. But so in my senior year, the team was sold, and suddenly it was like, all right, well, I knew I was going to go to college, but I didn't really know. I hadn't really given it a whole lot of thought where I was going to go. And I probably would have gone the same way. I went to Penn State, and I love college football, and it was close enough, like 3.5 hours away from Philadelphia, and a big school, so I could kind of, a little bit of anonymous, like, to me, was going to be a good thing. Like, I was kind of in a bubble my whole teen years. And so now suddenly being 18 years old and going off to college, I wanted to have like the whole experience. I wanted to have college football, and I wanted to have football games, and I wanted to be in a sorority, and I wanted to like just really be in that bubble, like out of that kind of like Philadelphia bubble, but make new friends and be in college. And so I loved my time at Penn State, and lots of fun football games. And, Coach Paterno, I know he's a polarizing figure for many reasons, but he and his family were incredibly gracious to me. And I, just loved going to football games and being just part of that whole State College Happy Valley experience. And there really is nothing like it. I mean, I know people watch it on TV, and like the whiteout games are so incredible. It brings tears to my eyes, because it's just the being a fan and being part of something, and everybody's there, and you feel the energy, and it's just so fun. That's what I love about football, and just being a fan is so great. So after that, and I graduated in 4 years, which makes you kind of dumb if you go to Penn State. Cause the thing is, like, it's so fun up there. Like, you want to find a way to drag it out and be like on the 5-year plan. Like, the really dumb people get out in 4 years. The smart ones are like, I think I'm going to take another
How
semester,
can I
like a
extend
fall
this?
semester. Yeah. How can I stay one more fall? Because there's really nothing like Happy Valley in the fall. But no, I got out in 4 years, and then I went to go work for NFL Films, and I had an incredible opportunity to go work for Steve Sable and at NFL Films, and that was amazing. And then said, I think I need to kind of get out of town a little bit, and I moved to California and got into the entertainment business and was in a couple movies, and just did a bunch of fun things that I thought would be interesting. I feel like while I have not served our country, I am very proud of the fact that my grandfather did, but I feel Forrest Gump like in certain ways where I'm like, I just did that and it was kind of the right time. I was like, oh, I was in The Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler and I was there and I did that and this and that. So I've had an incredible opportunity to make myself be in the right place at the right time often. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that. So, in all those experiences, can you give me a time where you just had to make a decision, not really knowing the outcome? You go east, you go west, you just made a decision and how it turned out?
Yeah, about 7 years ago exactly, I knew that my first book, Football, Freddie, and Fumble on Game Day in Philadelphia, was coming out. I'm a single mom with 3 kids, and we lived in California. We were, and I don't know if the airport at LAX is really rough. It's not for the faint of heart. And no matter where you live in Los Angeles, and we were living in Calabasas area, it's technically only like an hour to the airport, but I've missed flights when I had 3 hours to get there. And that wasn't even parking my car. And so I knew my first book was coming out. And, my family has always told me, like, here's the thing, couple things, like being flexible is a great life skill. And teaching your kids to be flexible is a really great life skill. And I think I was flexible growing up because, like, I had to, make a lot of adjustments and so forth. And so I said to my kids, I'm like, I have this book coming out. The airport is terrible. Are you guys open for an idea to move? Like, let's move. Let's leave California and let's move to the East Coast. I don't know where, probably not Philadelphia, because then it's not fair because I've already lived there and I have friends there. Like, let's go someplace where nobody knows anybody and we can just carve out our own niche and carve out our own path and learn to be flexible. And I said, if we don't like it, we can come back. All right. That was kind of the deal. So we looked around, we looked at different places, and we kind of kept coming back to this Carolina, North Carolina area right outside of Charlotte. And I said, all right, let's just do it. We're just going to do it. We're just going to do it. And people in California were like, oh my gosh, you are crazy, girl. Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't know anybody there. And like, it's so far away and you're going to take your kids. I'm like, I know. My kids were cool with it. I did have some like fear about like, okay, they're going to miss their friends. And I was like, but you know what? Life is about jumping in and doing, if you do your homework, it's about, going ahead and being uncomfortable, and I'm going to be uncomfortable too. So we're all going to be in it together. And, technology is great. They can talk to their friends still. But I said, but I think that like making new friends across the country is a great gift to give my kids. And they were totally into it. And so it's worked out really well, and they love it here. And now they're pretty, thankful that we're not in California anymore. So yeah.
Marnie, you mentioned that. I think it's so important, and I tell people all the time. So I've moved all over, lived in about 8 or 9 cities, and 4 states. And I'm from Wisconsin originally, but I'm so happy I took the opportunities I had to move kind of all over the country. And the biggest thing I tell people, you can always come back if it doesn't work out or if you don't feel right.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Exactly. Your friends, your family, everyone will still be there. But it's giving that experience. I think it just develops such a great worldview the more you do things like that. And as you mentioned, being more flexible and willing to adapt with change. Because, for example, when you move across the country, things don't always shape up the way you're anticipating it. Things get lost, things get delayed, and you just have to kind of make it work,
And that's what life is. And I always think that like being flexible is such a great skill to have. Like flexible not being a pushover, that's very different, but being flexible with your time, with, in the real world, like you might move for work, you might move for family, you might move for romance, you might move for just because it's time to like to get some changes, and you have a memory of being like, I can do that. I can move across the country. I can go make friends in a new school. I can do that. And those to me are skills that I think that are so important to have, and that they really do. And look at football players. I mean, they move a lot, their families move a lot. So I think that like getting that muscle group of being flexible and moving and, making new friends and like broadening your, horizons, those are all positive things that I definitely think bring a lot of joy into my life. And I know I'm grateful for my friends that I had in California. I love them. I'm grateful for my friends that I grew up with in Philadelphia. We still talk all the time. And I'm really grateful for my new friends here.
It's just such a great experience to kind of get out there and travel and see the world and just experience new things.
It is. It's really a blessing when and being mobile, like, my mom is, in a very, stage 7 out of 7 of dementia. So her mobility is not very good. And, she lives with us, or we live with her, I like to say. And so like, getting out and doing things is much more difficult. But so while you can, and while you're mobile, and while you have the ability to do it, like go experience things, go volunteer, go take some trips, go do things that are interesting, because that really does provide a lot of emotional currency, which I think then translates into the whole, who you are as a human being.
Marnie, I love that you mentioned emotional currency. And I think it is so important to have those experiences and just, it just helps you experience life better, I think is. And again, I'm understanding that not everyone has the same opportunities and people have other priorities they have to take care of. But if you do have the opportunities and you can make it work, I just always recommend going for it.
I think so. I think it's, and obviously everybody, and certainly financially, like I'm always very conscious of people's finances. And so I don't ever, want to sound reckless with my money, let alone anyone else's money, or my time. Time is a form of currency too. And time is a form of currency that, you can't trade on. It's really, there's a wonderful saying that says an ounce of gold cannot buy an inch of time. And I try to live by that motto. And now as I get older, I'm like, I don't want to waste time, but like, I want to do things that are productive and adding value, and bringing, joy into my life, which I know then I can then, boomerang that into other people and with other things.
Marnie, I couldn't agree more. So tell me a little bit more about your book. You said about 7 years ago, your first book came out. What really sparked that journey?
So, when I was traveling around with my mom as a young girl, I would write, because again, we would, be on a long plane ride and run out of batteries on my Sony Walkman because I'm that old. And so I don't even know if your listeners might not even know what a Walkman is. It was like a thing that you put a cassette in. I don't even know if they know what a cassette is, but like it was a way to hear music, okay, before the iPhone and before the iPod. So and my mom was a teacher, so I just wrote a lot of different notes and stories and characters. And my mom, I think, knew that she was, that dementia was definitely creeping up on her. And so she said, let's take out all those notes that you wrote and the stories that you wrote when you were younger and see if we can do something with that. So we put together Football Freddie and Fumble the Dog Game Day in Philadelphia, which, is kind of my life traveling around the city of Philadelphia. You get to see the sights in Philadelphia as you make your way to the stadium to cheer on the home team. And so that was 2017-18. Really, the reason why we left California was so that I knew the book was coming out and we would get to, I needed to be there to promote the book. What I didn't know that year, the 17-18 season, was that the Eagles were going to have tremendous success on the football field. So every week I'd, drive to Philadelphia. It's like a 7-8 hour drive where we'd fly and I would, do book signings, and we would go to 8 different Barnes and Nobles. And it was so fun and like so exciting. And at the same time, the Eagles kept winning and winning. And I was like, I'm like, this is getting weird because like we keep going to Philadelphia every weekend because every time they would get farther along, the bookstores would be like, can you come back and do another book signing? And I'm like, okay, I mean, sure. And so I would do like 8 books, 8 bookstores in a weekend. It was crazy. And I look back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, we would land or we would drive there and just run around. And then finally, like at 9 o'clock at night, we would get in an Uber and go to Pat's Cheesesteaks and sit there. And I'd be like, just so hungry and just shoving down a cheesesteak. And so then finally the Eagles ended up, winning and winning and made it to the Super Bowl and ended up winning the Super Bowl. And so the book sold out and did really well. And then my publisher said, well, let's write another one. I said, okay. So I lived in the Carolinas. So then we started doing Game Day in the Carolinas. And then that book did really well. Same idea, only we gave Freddie a friend because she didn't know the Carolinas. So each character in all the books are based off my friends or my friends' kids. And so did the Carolinas, and then we did Atlanta, and then we did Pittsburgh. And like, I love the Game Day in Pittsburgh book because Freddie's tour guide is a young man named Hugh, and Hugh is my college roommate's son, and Hugh is autistic. So we were able to beautifully acknowledge the fact that while Hugh might be autistic, he's still the best tour guide for the city of Pittsburgh. So I'm really proud of, like, in each of our books, we kind of, gently address certain things, like in Game Day in Atlanta, Gabe, who is Freddie's tour guide in Game Day in Atlanta, a young boy, he's in a wheelchair. So we were able to highlight things that may or may not be, applicable to kids or not, but it was just, and not every book has something like that, but it was, Game Day in Green Bay. We made a character named Vince, and Vince wears glasses. And so like if kids were like just little things like that. So we did Philadelphia, then with the Carolinas, then Atlanta, then Pittsburgh, then Chicago, then Green Bay, then Dallas, Fort Worth, then Tampa Bay. And then last year I partnered up with the Pro Football Hall of Fame and we did Game Day at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which was lots of fun. And of course, like I still kind of like pinch myself because I'm like, wait a minute. I have a book with the Hall of Fame. Like, what? Are you kidding? So that was great. And then I have 2 new books coming out this fall. I partnered up with Letha Atwater, Steve Atwater, Hall of Fame Steve Atwater, number 27 for the Denver Broncos. Steve Atwater's wife, Letha, who's a clinical psychologist. So we have Game Day in Denver coming out. It's great. I'm so proud of this book. We have, it's so beautiful. We are able to, in a really compassionate way, address some mental wellness issues for youth. And Letha, like I said, has many different degrees. And so this is something that we've been talking about. And I'm so excited because we get to highlight in a very subtle way, but yet still a very important way, some things to do if you're feeling a little funny and if you're feeling uncomfortable or your brain is telling you one thing, like just we give a few suggestions of what to do. And reading is definitely something that is very important to do. Reading, playing, eating well, those things. And then I have Game Day in Kansas City. I teamed up with Julie Green, Trent Green's wife, the quarterback, and she's my co-author in Game Day in Kansas City. So that book will be coming out also in the fall. And so I'm very excited. And, we got other plans and other books, and we'll just keep going along and then do the same thing with the other leagues. So we've got baseball Billy and Bunt the dog and basketball Bobby and Buzzer the dog and soccer Sammy and Score the dog. So we're just going to continue to do the same thing with all the other leagues and go just get kids excited about reading and being a fan and loving sports and being able to speak a little bit of sports because, we all agree that it definitely can help you.
Marnie, that's amazing. I think one of the things I love that you mentioned is while it might not be applicable to every child who's reading, when children and I think when people in general see themselves as part of the narrative, it does something that I can't even describe. I remember as a kid growing up going to the museum. I was born in Guatemala. I was adopted. And I remember seeing the Guatemalan village, while not maybe as historically accurate, as accurate as it's going to be for the mid 90s, but seeing myself in history was one of those moments that I think, while I didn't realize it and act on it at that moment, it did hit that switch where I started to see myself as part of the story instead of a byproduct of the story.
Yeah. And I think that we have non-gratuitously been able to represent my friend base, whatever it is, colors and sexes and things that I have been so fortunate to learn from my friends, many different things about their background or some of the things going on in their life or my friends' children. I've become a huge advocate of the autism community because I'm so proud of Stacy, who is my roommate in college and one of my best friends in the world. I mean, I talk to her every day, and like to watch how she's been such an incredible mother to her son, but also an advocate of the autism community. And so I'm so grateful for Stacy's work she lives in Pittsburgh and what she's done and beyond, that I wanted to really celebrate it and acknowledge Hugh and what a great young man he is. And so I think that like when people see my books, they definitely feel connected to the different stories, whatever it is, whether it's Mary, Freddie's tour guide in the game day in the Carolinas, whose father's in the military. And we're able to, I think, genuinely celebrate friendship too, because, let's face it, like our friends are often, our family as well. And not everybody has like that storybook family. They rely on their friends, and their friends show them things and teach them things. And so that's what I love about our books too, is that the friendships are really real and celebrated.
All right, I couldn't agree more. If people want to learn more about you or your book, when can they find you on social media?
Well, they can find me on Instagram. I'm Marnie Schneider 1 on Instagram. They can go to marnieschneider.com, which is my website, and that's where the books are also on Amazon. But so they can go to Amazon. They can go to Facebook and friend me on Facebook. They can reach out to you and you can connect us. I'm on LinkedIn also. So just my name, Marnie Schneider. And that's how, it's pretty much how it works. Like today I was actually thinking about it. Like there's this people in Philadelphia, when you hang up the phone with them, they say bye as in BYE, like bye now. And so I was like, I need to take that and change it into BUI, bye now, as in my books. I'm not the best. It's hard for me to be a pitch person, but I definitely love sharing my stories. And I, definitely am very excited about what we've been able to do. We're approved curriculum in a bunch of different school districts. And so I'm really proud of that. And I do a tremendous amount of school readings and story times, whether it's, with different charities or at different schools. And so I am very proud of the stuff that I've been able to get to do and to hopefully make a difference.
Marnie, I want to thank you again for taking the time. It's so exciting to learn more, meet new people, meet new football fans, and just continue to share other people's stories.
Well, thank you. Thank you for reaching out, and thanks for, setting this up for me. I really am grateful. The fact that like I get to share my story about my family history, which is unique. And I'm very proud of the contributions that my grandfather and my mother made to the NFL and to professional sports and to the entire city of Philadelphia, and beyond. My grandfather was one of the original founders of the Ronald McDonald House. And so I'm very proud of that charity, and I'm very involved with the Ronald McDonald House and serve on the board. But I think that, again, just making new friends. See, like now we're friends and we'll talk sports, and, that's great. And it really does bring everybody together. So thank you so much for having me on and reaching out to me. And definitely it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
I will look forward to it.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.